Hi, we're at the Seminole Indian Village in Tampa, where the powwow is going on. Is it an annual powwow or semi-annual?
It's a semi-annual. We try to have it at least twice a year.
And with me is Larry, who is a Seminole Indian, and he's one of the tour guide operators here. And we had to come back, Larry, because we interviewed Ronnie a while ago on the alligator rescue.
Alligator man, yeah.
And I don't think many people thought that it was that dangerous, but here to prove it, I don't know if your viewers at home can see this, but this is a particularly nasty result of an alligator bite. Here, turn it around so everyone can see. There you go.
We've been here 12 years. The way it all started is the burial site inside of our museum, and it was moved from Harbor Island to this area, to this 8.5 acres. This is why we're here today.
And how many people were buried and were moved altogether?
It was 150 were actually moved from Harbor Island. They were waiting to be deported. These were the Indians that died at Old Fort Brooke back in the 19th century.
Oh, during the Seminole Indian Wars?
Yes, yes.
Oh, I see. Now, they had to be moved because of what reason?
They were moved because of building, okay, too much building going on. So the government traded that land to where we're at today.
Do you think that was an improvement?
I believe so. Okay. I do tour guides for schools. I also do some of the alligator wrestling. I'm also a snake handler.
Oh, yeah.
I also handle the bears and the panthers for the village, for Bobby Henry's Seminole Village.
Larry, do you also handle the bear as well? The bears?
I don't handle him as walking the bear. I handle him as feeding them and taking care of them.
And she's due next year,
hopefully,
right?
Next year.
How many cubs do you expect?
2 to 3.
2 to 3 in one litter. That's going to be great. Do you have to assist at all, or does she do it all?
No, she'll have it all by herself.
Oh,
she'll do it all by herself.
Yeah, let someone try and assist.
You got it.
I'll sing you this one. It's about Christopher Columbus. You know who he is, huh? Yeah, he's the one who gave us all these nifty deeds. Kind of a short, punchy guy. Well, hey, 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 well, hey, hi, well, hey, 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 well, hey, hi, well, hi, yo. Christopher Columbus didn't have a peso, so he walked the streets of Spain selling hot tamales. Well, hey, 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 you can sing along if you like. Hi, well, hey, 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 well, hey, hi, well, hi, yo. Columbus went to Queen of Spain with a proposition. Give me ships and give me men, and I'll be your boyfriend. Well, hey, 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 well, hey, hi, well, hey, 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 well, hey, hi, well, yo. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean, tried to reach India, but never got past Cuba. Well, hey, 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 well, hey, hi, well, hey, 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 well, hey, hi, yo. That's all, Chris.
With me now is Ken Mulder, who has just written a book called Seminole Days of Long Ago. And you were just saying to me earlier that the Seminole Indians were not originally a Plains Indian?
Well, they have not always lived in the Everglades.
Everglades.
Their history goes back to the early 1700s when they broke away from the creeks in the Oconee and came south into Florida on a hunting and scouting expedition, and they found cattle, which they had never seen before, living among the wild deer around St. Augustine. So they butchered one of them and took it back to the Oconee chief in South Georgia and showed him that there were thousands of them living among the deer down there. So the Oconees packed up their clothes, their women, their dogs, all their possessions, and came south and settled in the Paynes Prairie area, right around Alachua, which is south of Gainesville.
Because the game was more plentiful here?
Because the game was more plentiful, and that was the beginning of the Seminoles. And from there, the runaway slaves from the colonies in Alabama and Georgia came south, and the Seminoles welcomed them. And the Spanish called them Cimarrones, which means runaways. And as they lived among the Indians separate but apart from them, then they started speaking the English version of Seminoles. So that's how the Seminoles came into being. And after the Treaty of Moultrie Creek and the devastation that the American government through Andrew Jackson did to them, they kept coming further and further south, and finally they were just forced by absolute force, like driving cattle into the Everglades.
I believe this is my personal opinion. We live in a multicultural society. It is important to know the different cultures to be able to understand the other people.
That's right.
As well to understand ourselves. So we have read about behaviors of other cultures. So this time they understand the real words about Native Americans, knowing the way they preserve they look this way. They never has asked to the Indians how they really was. Always the history is by those who make the books. But this time we have an ally.
Well, an ally in the struggle for Native American rights?
Well, I will. This is not the Native American rights, or there is no struggles or any political connotation, as you mentioned.
Unless
this culture, a culture doesn't have political party, religious beliefs, or any kind of belief. That's the living things of the people. They're the food, they're the music, that's the history, that's the legend, that's the care for the land. So those doesn't have political parties.
The dances that we're going to be performing, they are traditional, authentic dances. Each dance, each step, they all have different meanings, they all have different symbols. And one of the dances we always start with is the one we call Quincuance. Quincuance means 4 points or 4 directions. Margarito Anaya, he has an outfit which is representing Mictlantecutli. Mictlantecutli is the symbol of the dead.